You know what's fascinating? Most advisors think their problem is their marketing. They'll say, I need better ads, or I need a better website, or more LinkedIn posts, better content. But that's not the problem. The problem is marketability. See, marketing is what you do, marketability is what you are. So if prospects can't feel your authority before you ever open your mouth, then no amount of tactics is going to save you. Let me tell you what I mean. I work with a lot of advisors who are objectively excellent. CFPs, CFAs, decades of experience, stellar performance, and they're still losing deals to advisors with half their credentials. Why? Because they're all singing from the same hymnal. I call it the credential choir. Everyone shouting the same notes, just trying to sing a little louder. We're fiduciaries, we're fee only, we have a disciplined process. And the prospect's brain just tunes it out. Because credentials don't trigger trust, they trigger scrutiny. So the moment that you lead with logic, you're asking the prospect to evaluate you. And evaluation is the enemy of magnetism. Now, Harvard researchers suggest that up to 95% of our decisions happen subconsciously. The emotional brain makes the call first, then the logical brain scrambles to justify it after a fact. That's why when you ask your old clients why did they choose you to begin with, they're going to just, we got along and, you're a CFP, you're qualified. It's going to be the stuff that they can just grasp onto that sounds rational. Very little that's real, very little that's marketable. So when a prospect sits across from you, their mammalian brain is just asking one question. Is this person safe to follow? Not, do they have the right designations? Not, what's the fee structure? Just, can I trust this person to lead me? And that decision is made in seconds before you've said a word about your process, before you've shown them a single chart. It's made based on how you show up. Now, quick context. I'm Dr. Joshua Wilson. I was a farm kid from rural Alabama who became an advisor, built firms, sold them, closed hundreds of millions in AUM, and I kept seeing the same problem. The advisors who won usually weren't the smartest. They were the most magnetic. So I went back after selling my firms and got my PhD in behavioral finance to figure out why. Now I help advisors and wealth techs engineer that magnetism into their growth strategy because marketing wasn't ever broken. Marketability was. If you want to see how that works, there's a link in the description to book a call. So, how do you engineer authority? Not by claiming it, but by embodying it. And there are 4 subconscious signals that the mammalian brain reads as authority. And when you master these, you stop pitching and start leading. Signal 1, controlled cadence. See, fear speeds things up, but authority slows things down. So when you speak and move more deliberately, you're signaling, I don't need this deal. And the moment you don't need it, they want it. Think about the last time you met with a prospect who was desperate for your business. How'd that feel? Exactly. Now flip it. Slow your speech. Pause before you respond. Let silence do work. The prospect brains, they read this as this person is in control, and control is magnetic. Have you ever noticed how the advisors who seem the least desperate close the most deals? If you have, drop me a one-line answer and tell me about it. Signal 2, frame ownership. Whoever defines what the decision is about shapes how the decision gets made. So if a prospect asks, what are your fees? Many advisors are either going to blurt out a number and start defending it or avoid the question completely, and neither one of those works. Instead, answer the question without allowing the fee to define the entire conversation. Our fees generally range from X to Y, but before we narrow that down, we need to understand what you actually need, what you're trying to accomplish, and what the right relationship would need to deliver. That's not avoiding the question. It's putting the question in the proper context, because a fee by itself tells the prospect almost nothing. They can't evaluate what they're paying until they understand what they're getting. What changes? What becomes easier? What decisions become clearer? How do they feel afterwards? What risks are reduced? What does their financial life look like and feel like when the relationship is working? If the only thing discussed is the fee, then the prospect will evaluate you like a commodity. But once the conversation includes the outcome, the process, and the value of getting it right, then they have a completely different decision to make. See, frame ownership does not mean refusing to answer the prospect's question. It means answering it without allowing one number to become the entire basis of the decision. So the stated question is about fees, but your job is to make sure the decision is also about value. So you answer the fee question, you just don't let it become the whole question. And if this is landing, subscribe, hit the like button, and share it with one advisor who needs to hear this. Now, signal 3, detached conviction. Detachment is leverage every time. The moment you need the prospect to say yes, you've lost, because neediness is repellent. But conviction is magnetic. Now there's a shift here. Stop trying to convince them you're the right choice. Start believing you're the right choice and let them catch up. When your certainty in your process is stronger than your need for their approval, they will feel it and they will follow. Have you ever walked away from a prospect because they weren't the right fit? How did that change the dynamic with your next prospect? Think about it and tell me about the experience below in the comments. Signal 4, principled boundaries. This is the one most advisors get wrong. They think being nice means saying yes to everything. Wrong. Boundaries are what make you the only option. So when you say, I only work with clients who are ready to commit to a long-term plan, you're not being difficult, you're being selective. And selectivity signals value. So the advisors who enforce their process, who fire bad fit clients, who say no without apology, those are the ones that prospects chase, because the mammalian brain knows if this person is selective, they must be worth it. So what's one boundary you've set in your practice that changed everything? If you've got one, put it in the comments. Okay, now here's what happens when you master these 4 signals. Meetings stop being pitches. They become confirmations. The prospect walks in already believing you're the right choice. So your job isn't to convince them, it's to confirm what they already feel. That's the difference between marketing and marketability. Marketing gets you the meeting. If you've got a strong signal, that's the first part, signal. Marketing gets a strong signal out there. If you have a weak, undifferentiated signal, then your marketing is not going to work very well. But if you've got a strong signal, I help my clients find that, and you get that distributed via marketing, and then you get that in the meeting, that marketability will survive that pressure layer of being in front of the client. It makes that meeting a formality. So, do you want to engineer this into your firm? See the link in the description to book an only option growth strategy session. We'll map where your authority signals are getting lost and build a plan to fix it. And remember, authority isn't claimed, it's felt. And when you engineer the right signals, you stop being just another option. You become the only one they trust. That's the shift. Now, go make it.